Winter Moments by Jefferson Rowland. There are times the sun shines just so on a field of snow. Oak and maple shadows stretch like long, skinny fingers across the dunes, and the afternoon winds dance before dusk, when you realize you are already in heaven, even as your heart beats and eyes sparkle, and wishing for more is a waste of time. For this moment is a miracle, as God sits with his arms around you once again.
Hi everybody, it's Pam and John, and we're here in Joshi Chapel to bring you the Chalice Lighting.
As we light our chalice, we share our church covenant. We promise to listen and learn together with compassion, curiosity, and an open mind, engage in creating a warm and welcoming community, work together beyond our walls to address social and environmental challenges, and with our time, talent, and treasure, support our church and its mission.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Pam and John. I'm Reverend Pam Romancic, and my pronouns are she and hers, and I serve here at the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale. It is good to be together for our first service of 2021. We welcome you and welcome our new year. We're looking today through our monthly theme of consolation and desolation, those twin sides of a coin which examine human suffering and the way we hold one another and support one another through that suffering. We're looking at the ways that we can have the most engaged and connected experience of life on this earth. It's an ongoing project of asking, what does it mean to be human? How do I live in ways that align with my values? What is this thing called life all about? We have a lot of questions ultimately, but we generally end up following Rilke's advice to live the questions rather than to claim to have all the answers. This morning, we're just throwing out ideas and really always love to see what you think too. If you enjoy today's service, I hope you might share it with someone you know who would appreciate it during this challenging time. Now for today, I want to thank Ashley Kennedy, who is today's worship associate, Nate McDad for a reflection he shared with us, and our regular team of wonderful tech people, Jamie Passman, Suzanne Williams, and Jean Schaefer. Special thanks to Dave Lloyd, who did such a great job last Sunday. This work really is a team effort with so many hands making light work. Now, please enjoy our opening music.
Dear acquaintance, it's so good to know you, for strength of your hand that's loving and giving, and a happy new year with love overflowing, with joy in our hearts for the blessed new year. Raise your glass and we'll have a cheer for us all who are gathered here, and a happy new year to all that is living, to all that is gentle, kind, we grow fonder and fonder. Hail to those we hold so dear, and hail to those who are gathered here, and a happy new year to all that is living, to all that is gentle, kind and forgiving. Raise your glass and we'll have a cheer, my dear acquaintance. A happy new year. Happy New Year.
Winter Meditation by Tess Baumberger. Something has changed in me this winter. In the past, I've focused on how long winter is, how miserable I find it, how it seems so interminable. This winter, I find myself thinking instead that every day, every hour, every minute brings us just that much closer to spring. We all experience wintry times, when things seem harsh and frozen or muffled by layered shrouds of snow. It is helpful to remember that each day that dawns bleakly, each night that wraps its cold cloak around our hearts, brings us closer to that time of warm and vibrant sun. It is perhaps helpful to consider that turning towards spring is an active thing. The earth, which seems so stable, in fact flies quickly through space on its path that tilts us ever toward the source. So too, each memory we lay to rest, each truth in ourselves that we encounter and accept, each wrong act that we forgive, ushers us on toward our own renewal. Thus ends the reading.
I invite you now to settle into your chairs, to take a deep breath in, and then a cleansing, releasing breath out. Allow any anxiety or worrying that you're carrying in your body to drain down through your body, out the bottoms of your feet, and into the rich, dark earth below. Our prayer this morning is, O thou whose power we see in the stars, by the Reverend Charles Howe. Thou, whose power we see in the stars, in whose presence we experience as love, we would today be sustained by that power and open to that love. Help us to remember that as we sow, so shall we reap, that whatever we project out from ourselves also comes back to us. Help us then give our love, that we may also receive love. We acknowledge that all of us need it, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity, no matter how independent or self-sufficient we may appear to be. Help us to understand that even when we feel empty of love, when we feel that we have none to give, and sometimes we all feel that way, we can still receive love if we are open to it. And then, having received it, help us recognize that we do, again, have something to give. Now, in a sacrament of shared silence, may we think on these things, thinking of those opportunities that may be ours, opportunities for openness, for giving, for receiving, for when, where, to whom, from whom. Amen. From that place of thinking on things, we now turn to our portion of the service when we introduce our offering. While we were together in person, we would have one Share the Plate Sunday each month. But unfortunately, when we went virtual, the amount that we gathered for those agencies out doing great work in the world has dropped a lot. To try and fix that, we've moved to an entire month of asking, but we still only share what is designated for that recipient each month. If you have the ability to give, we invite you to do so out of your abundance. And please ignore the subsequent weekly reminders. You can click donate on our website or mark social action or write FEP or on a check on the memo line, or even write just January. And you can send that in a check to 17 West Maple Street, Hinsdale, 60521. But remember, we also have resources to help anyone within our community that needs it during these challenging times. We've been doing this a long time, and if you need groceries or help with an emergency expense, please contact me or call the office. The generosity of this community has built up an emergency relief fund, and we have it on hand to help. The pandemic is almost over, but not quite. While we have a light at the end of the tunnel, we need to hold on a while longer. We are bound together by our love and care, and we need you to know that we are here to help. So please do let us know. Now, here is a message from this month's recipient, the Food Empowerment Program.
Hi, I'm Lauren Ornelas. I'm the founder of Food Empowerment Project. I wanted to thank you so much for your support of the work that we do here at Food Empowerment Project. As a vegan food justice organization, you know the importance of the work that we do to help non-human animals not be part of our food system. As vegans, we understand the importance of where our food comes from, and so part of our work is also done to help farm workers who pick our food. We're also trying to get people not to buy chocolate sourced from the worst forms of slavery and child labor so that we can eat chocolate that is truly cruelty-free and isn't at the hands of the suffering or human animals or non-human animals as well. We're also doing our best to work to help those communities, mostly Black and brown communities, that lack access to healthy foods, to ensure that everybody has rights to healthy foods, but also has the ability to go vegan and eat their ethics if they want to. So thank you so much for all that you've done to support our work, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Hi, I'm Sharanya Krishna Prasad, and I'm the Executive Director of Food Empowerment Project. I want to thank the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale for featuring FEP and for collecting donations to support our work. FEP is a nonprofit organization, which means we're only able to do the work that we do as a result of contributions from wonderful supporters like you. And every donation makes a huge difference and will help us continue our work to create a more just and sustainable world in 2021 and beyond. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Mooney, serving on the board of the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale. This is a time in our service when we remember the good things this church does in the world and invite you to help support our work. You can go to our website, which is www.hinsdaleunitarian.org, and click on the donate button, or you can simply send your check in to the church office. I support this church for so many reasons. The members and leaders of this community inspire me to think differently, learn more, and most importantly, take action and consider ways I can live differently. I know myself well enough to know that I wouldn't be learning about and doing some of the work I'm involved in now all by myself. And for that encouragement and support, I am very grateful. Now, even though we can't be together, I invite you to say our offering words together. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, and the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with the people around us, and with all of the world. Thank you.
New Year's Eve has always been one of my favorite holidays, and on the very last day of 2020, as we, and the entire planet probably, looked forward to a new year, we had to say goodbye to our beloved dog Sam. It came hard and fast. He stopped eating, and then we could tell he was in a lot of pain. We took him to the vet on the 30th, and it snowballed into a hopeless and surreal end. And so, as we held him New Year's Eve morning, as the breath and life slipped out of his 14-year-old broken body, it was truly awful, as I know so many of you know. Ashley was scrolling through recent pictures to find some to share, and she noticed how much Sam was just there in nearly every picture. Not as a focal point, but in the background or walking across in a video of the kids hunting for Easter eggs. He's been there since before we had kids, through 5 different moves in 3 different states. Our daughter Nora, 9, was reading a book just last week and came across the word surreal and asked us what it meant. At that time, it was easy to just define it as when things don't feel real and it's like you are floating through time, almost watching yourself. Merriam-Webster says, surreal, marked by the intense, irrational reality of a dream. Also, unbelievable, fantastic. Our grief over Sam, like much over the last year, has been surreal. It's mixed in with a swirling flood of disjointed memories that rise to the surface in random explosions of joy, memorializing the life of a dog that had spanned nearly as long as our 15-year marriage. First, February 2007, driving home with him wrapped in a blanket as his puppy shark teeth gnawed playfully on our fingers, and we pet his impossibly soft fur. We were grinning stupidly at one another and at our perfect little red puppy. April 2011, lifting Sam up to peep into the baby carrier at his new human sister, the day we introduced him to Nora. 2008, frantically on the phone with poison control, trying to figure out what to do after he ate an entire bag of chocolate truffles. 2009, an entire jar of honey, and then a tube of super glue, and so on. This summer, watching old man Sam gently lumber around our neighborhood, no leash, the king of the block. Back to 2008, taking Sam out to every outdoor restaurant in our Boston neighborhood while we drank beer and our pup lazed at our feet. There are really so many more that we could spend the rest of the time just telling you funny stories about Sam. But for all of us with pets or memories or losses from this year, it's the weird ping-ponging from the current state of trying not to cry when looking at his empty dog bed, to laughing about how he killed a tree because he ripped all the bark off trying to get a squirrel. Or speaking of squirrels, how he caught one once, brought it in the house and dropped it at Ashley's feet while she was feeding newborn Nora. She thought it was a stuffed animal and shrieked. That doesn't even do it justice. 2020 was surreal, like being in a movie. The first weekend of quarantine way back in March, we binge-watched Outbreak and then Contagion. And if you can't tell from the names alone, watching the movies was a way to make sense of the weird time we were living in. How many of you at some point last year said, I feel like I'm living in a movie? And did you know Oxford added a new word for 2020? Blur's Day, meaning having trouble telling the days of the week apart. Sam's memories are like that too. He's so interwoven with our lives, it's hard to put an exact date on the memory that pops up. But getting lost in them, reliving them, and retelling them brings back the joy. And finally, close on a favorite quote. If there are no dogs in heaven, then when I die, I want to go where they went. Will Rogers.
Oh my goodness. I'll give you a moment or two to find your Kleenex and dry your eyes. It's my 3rd time through and it still gets me. Thank you, Nate, for putting into words what so many of us experience in our lives with pets. Whether it's a dog or cat or parakeet or bearded dragon, our animal companions become members of the family, interwoven into our memories and deeply embedded in our hearts. Like other important relationships, our connection with them helps to mark the passing of time, helps to mark the important parts of our lives. We can ask, when did we get Suki? Oh yeah, Carrie got her from a shelter the year she went away to college, so it was 2006, because she didn't want me to be lonely after my last child was leaving the nest. And Parker, our first dog, Karen and I got her during our first year down in Chattanooga, which was a big step in our relationship as we became puppy parents before deciding to actually get married. It'll be easier for so many people to remember those folks who acquired pandemic pups or catastrophe kitties. Some new companion that helped fill the void of Blur's Day in this unprecedented year. Karen and I will be able to say we got Ruthie the year of the pandemic, or the year Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, or the year democracy took a hard wobble. There are lots of markers for 2020 that Ruthie's presence with us will help remember. As humans, we mark our lives by events which stand out in them. And while we exist in an objective framework of time, it's much easier to remember events if there's some emotional attachment. Relationships, moments, rituals all help to order our lives, help us to separate what was important and life-changing from that steady blur that seems to all blend together. We can remember the year I got married, the year I was called to Hinsdale, the year we moved out to the country. They are milestones which make up the fabric of our lives. And those milestones also bind us together as communities. Like the generation who lived through World War II, we will have a shared language and an understanding with people who survived this pandemic year. We'll know how annoying it was to have your glasses fog up while wearing that painful and stupid mask, but we still wore it. We'll remember how lonely Christmas seemed for those who took seriously safeguarding their loved ones. We'll remember the ubiquitous technology and how it spread everywhere, even for those who had resisted its march in the past. Sadly, part of the event is also the divisiveness that the country is experienced right now, splitting down party lines about almost everything. There will be different shared memories, but we will all share having experienced this year, this out of the ordinary year. Shared human experience and meaning making is one of the most amazing things about being human. We have within us the capacity to reflect on things as they happen and to find meaning in both individual and shared experiences. We notice what happened, and then we stop and reflect on how it affected us and how it affected the people around us and what effect our actions have on those people around us. New Year's Day, New Year's time is one of those moments, one of those places where we stop and we really look at what's gone by, where we notice and decide what story we're going to carry forward with us into the future. We pause in our headlong scramble always onward and discern those gifts and challenges of this past year. 2020 was a challenging year. What were the main challenges that you faced? Were there things that seemed easy but ended up being hard? Which events pulled you through and helped you to survive? Which taught you something new, something you never knew about before? They're all things to reflect on this week as we begin 2021. Now, we are still in the midst of the pandemic, and there is more suffering than can possibly be explored in this hour. But there have also been unexpected blessings. There was an article in the Washington Post by Diana Nyad celebrating the fact that she got to be home with her 15-year-old dog, Teddy, in a way that she'd never been able to before. She writes, "I'm crazy about my hound dog, and we've suddenly been given the singular time to go through every moment of his old age together. No more dog walker. We head out for our very slow stroll, greeting neighbor humans and dogs. Some we know well, some we've never seen before. I wash him and brush his coat every Saturday, and he tells me when he's hurting, and I try some soothing aloe lotion on his skin. He's not on the precipice of his last breath, but he's aging literally day by day. Teddy and I are in it together every last step." Nyad was focusing on what she's lost, not focusing on what she's lost. She could be focusing on what is hard. She could be focusing on the fact that Teddy is nearing the end of his life. But she's chosen gratitude. She's chosen to appreciate the experience of really being with Teddy. And that helps make her more appreciative of her life as a whole. We are all given that opportunity to stop, to reflect, and to make decisions about how we're going to live going forward because of what has just happened in our lives. Now, I know many of you know that Tracy Olson asked herself what she could do last March when the world was first negotiating life in a pandemic. She decided to send out an open invite for a wise elders group and was gratified by such a great response. The group, of up to a dozen people on any given Tuesday, has found a niche that was missing in our church. They gather on Zoom, they tell stories, they reflect on the events of their lives, they share experiences and learn about one another in a way they never had time to before. More than one member of the group has expressed to me their delight in having a place to get to know folks who they'd gone to church with for decades, perhaps, but now they knew them in entirely different ways. I mean, coffee hour is nice, but it's not a place we can build very deep relationships. Other things that are happening is our meditation group led by Lenny Edgens. It's been stronger and better attended on Zoom than the live ones that we held in the church ever were. And some members are also stepping up to offer classes and other gatherings this month in January. So again, watch news and notes and our website for more details. Things happen when you decide to make them happen. Things change when you decide how you're going to respond to them. So I ask you today, what stories will you tell about 2020? What stories, and what will the stories that you tell say about you? Time marks our lives. It gives us a framework into which to understand them. There are different kinds of time, different speeds for various parts of our lives. Each of us exists within an arc of time, actually many complementing arcs, but one main timeline. As children, time moves so slowly. There's just so much to grasp, so much to delight in, so much to wonder, so many new experiences. Lives are so full that a year can take forever. My dad once told me that's because a year is such a huge percentage of an 8-year-old's experience. Well, it's just a tiny fraction of an 80-year-old's. But during our middle years, we kind of have fallen into a rhythm. We aren't learning every minute, and we can find places to rest and even sometimes be bored. For me, those years seem to bring myriad challenges, but also some sense of better yet to come. A forward outlook, expecting surprises, new people, experiences, the hope of anticipation. But now as I'm reaching the end of my middle years, it seems that life has begun to move ever more quickly. I barely turn around and there is another New Year's Day upon us. My children are middle-aged, and I'm not sure that life has that many promises yet to keep. The end of the arc is a quickening time, but none of us are sure toward what we are heading so fast. The poet, David White, urges us to take charge of time by taking charge of our lives. In his poem, The Faces at Braga, he describes faces carved out of wood, carved into deities who express so much life in their frozen faces. He writes, "If only we could give ourselves to the blows of the carver's hands, the lines in our faces would be the trace lines of rivers feeding the sea, where voices meet, praising the features of the mountain and the cloud and the sky. Our faces would fall away until we, growing younger toward death every day, would gather all of our flaws in celebration to merge with them perfectly, impossibly, wedded to our essence, full of silence from the carver's hands." This speaks to me of embracing the fullness of who we are, relaxing into the ragged, fragile, imperfect beings that we have always been, so that we can really pay attention to the world around it as it is. Pay attention, like this morning, to the beautiful, lacy trees outside our windows. Every time we turned the corner, it looked like another painting from Currier and Ives. When we see the world as it really is, in White's words, praising the features of the mountain and the cloud and the sky, growing younger towards death. It's a phrase that has lived in my imagination ever since I first heard it, growing younger towards death. Is it possible? Can I stay fully alive to the wonder in the world around me? Can I stay present to the myriad miracles that happen every single day? I like to think so, but I have been wrestling with how exactly it works. The one thing I do know is it takes intentionality. I have to remember to look beyond the obvious, beyond what I expect to see, beyond what I've done so many times before. Staying open to new experiences while holding on to a crude wisdom is an art and takes intent and a lot of practice. It takes a mind willing to say, I don't know, and I wonder, which takes much more energy than simply believing you know all there is to know and you have all the answers already. I realize I'm talking to folks at many different points on the arc of life. Some are still youngins, still trying to figure out what this thing is all about, full of energy and enthusiasm. Just watching our 5-month-old puppy Ruthie reminds me of the joy of that time. Everything is amazing to be sniffed and explored and tasted, or maybe carried around just for fun. Some are more in the middle passage of life, having seen a lot already, knowing the ropes. Harder to get enthusiastic about every little detail. Kind of like our 7-year-old dog, Parker, who would rather remain comfortably on her corner of the couch. Beyond the occasional UPS delivery guy or the crackling of the treat bag, there's not a lot that gets her attention. But you know what? Having Ruthie join the family has given her a new lease on life. She gets up and she plays and she rowdies and she has a great time. She even's excited to see the deer walking through the yard when Ruthie starts barking her head off in their direction. She is looking like a little younger dog every day. And maybe that's the clue. A clue to how to grow younger towards our inevitable end. We can remain comfortably on our corner of the couch, or we can reach out, find new people, new relationships, learn new ideas. We can learn about the trees in our neighborhood, or the migration of birds, or the connection that happens in the roots below the trees. Every day, there's an amazing array of new knowledge being shared in the world if we take time to pay attention. But I think, in the end, that is what keeps us young. It is the answer to the question about time and arcs and living on this earth. We can fall into ruts of comfort and self-satisfaction, continuing to grow smaller as we hurtle through our lives. Or we can stop and notice and reflect, no matter what our chronological age, no matter what is happening in the world around us. We can challenge ourselves to make room for people who might challenge our comfort and threaten our self-satisfaction. We can challenge ourselves to make room for those who might even be a little annoying. I mean, ask Parker how great it is to have a puppy chewing on your ears every day. We don't have control over a lot in our lives. We don't have control over where we are born, or some of our health issues, or what is going on in the country around us. We can't control the speed of the earth around the sun, the spinning seasons, but we can control how we respond to the things we encounter. We can take time to notice those blessings, small and large, which grace our lives. Our lives are filled with relationships and connections, which color what we remember, what we see, how we show up. The blessing of old dogs and old pets in general is they show us the arc of our own lives in miniature, beginning, middle, and end. And in doing so, they offer us some very sage advice on how to love with our whole hearts until we reach our day's end. Amen, and blessed be. Our reading is Gentleness in Living by the Reverend Richard S. Gilbert. Be gentle with another. It is a cry from the lives of people battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there, of hope and hurt, or promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care. For there are human beings within, human beings as vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring. It is lasting enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another. Thus ends the reading.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world.
Love you, miss you.
Our benediction words are from a dear friend of mine, the Reverend James Hobart. As we depart from one another, let our hearts be secure through every human season. Let our hearts be secure in seasons of anguish as in seasons of joy, in seasons of failure as in seasons of success, in seasons of uncertainty as in seasons of security. Let our hearts be secure in this dual reality. We are worthy recipients of love and support that we can never earn, and we are worthy providers of love and support that others cannot earn. Let us in our hearts be secure, for hearts know and understand and will respond if invited in. Music from Jamie.